Hey, what's good, everybody? I'd like to welcome you all back to the Boombox Guru channel. I'm your host, LB. So I got another Digging Through the Stacks episode that I wanted to do today. I'm pretty excited about doing this episode because it's really based on one of my favorite rap groups. Today we're going to be talking about legendary Bay Area rap group RBL Posse. Straight out of the Hunters Point section of San Francisco, California, man. One of the greatest groups to ever come out of the San Francisco Bay Area. Legendary group. So how I got into RBL Posse, man, I got into them actually like 20 years ago. Actually the first time I heard about them was before that. The first time I heard about them was actually through Master P. You know, they were on the first West Coast Bad Boys compilation album. And then I also remember Master P shouting them out on the intro of the Ice Cream Man album, and he also gave them a shout out in the liner notes of that record. So that was the first time I ever heard about RBL. But when I really got into them was actually when I was in high school. There was this website I used to go on to that was dedicated to West Coast hip hop, and they had just about all the West Coast rap groups and artists categorized from Northern California to Southern California, and they had them categorized by the cities that they were from. And I recognized RBL amongst the other artists in the Bay Area section. I recognized their name under San Francisco. So I clicked on that page and I looked at all the albums they had dropped at that point. And that's where it really kind of started. Then, you know, CD Universe was really popping at that time. I used to go on that website all the time and listen to like the 30-second snippets of like songs from albums. And I remember clicking on Ruthless by Law and hearing a 30-second snippet of Bounce to This. And as soon as I heard that bass line and that clap, I was sold. I was like, man, I got to dig into this group even more. And then, so this was probably going into like 2005. This was around the time when YouTube first started to take off. Now this was way before YouTube became what it is today. You know, the very censorship mess that it is now. This was early YouTube. This was that golden era where people were pretty much uploading whatever. And I remember seeing the uncensored version of the Bounce to This video. I remember seeing that. I don't know how many people can say they actually saw that uncensored version the Bounce to This video, but that used to be on YouTube way before they started getting all strict and everything. And then people started uploading like songs from the albums up on the site. I think I ended up seeing somebody eventually uploaded the Bammer Weed video, and it just really started from there, man. I had a friend at the time who worked at a record store, and he told me, yo, LB, man, you know, I'm working at this record store part-time now. Like, if you want some music or whatever, man, you just, you know, you give me the money, man, and I can see if we got it, and I'll get it for you. And if we don't, we can order it. So I asked him, like, could you, like, order the RBL Posse, Ruthless by Law? And he ordered it for me, and I got it, and been a fan ever since. So RBL Posse, a rap group consisting of Black C, who's also the group's producer, Mr. C, and a little bit later on, Hitman. Legendary rap group, very underrated. I mean, due to some tragedies that took place within the group, they never really got to break out into the mainstream. So, you know, so be it. I mean, they were right at the cusp of doing that when some tragedy stuck that I'll get into later in the video. But they are a legendary rap group, and they were well respected by a lot of West Coast hip hop fans and hip hop fans alike. And I just wanted to do this video because I noticed I didn't have a video on YouTube about them, and I figured that, you know, I should go ahead and get that done and just show my appreciation to this group, because I think they're one of the greatest rap groups to come out of the West Coast, and I think more people should know about them. But honestly, nowadays, people are starting to recognize them so much more. People are starting to recognize them so much more and give them flowers, man. But honestly, I just wanted to make this video and just show my appreciation to them and show them how their music managed to reach a young teenage dude from North Carolina, you know what I'm saying, that was nowhere even near like the markets that they were probably touching, man. But their music reached me, and you know, I probably was the only person in my area that was riding around bumping RBL, and I actually put a lot of people onto their music as well, man. So I just wanted to just show my appreciation to them, and just put people on to a great rap group. You know, for people that are already familiar with them, hope you enjoy this video, and for those who aren't familiar with them, hey, just sit back and press play and get introduced to a very underrated rap group and learn some West Coast hip hop history. So just stay tuned. Alright, so we're gonna start at the beginning with the very first RBL album, Ruthless by Law, A Lesson to Be Learned, released in 1992. Classic West Coast hip hop album. I'm gonna tell you what I like so much about this first album. Well, let me start off by saying that on this album, the only two members of RBL are Mr. C and Black C. These two down here that are kneeling. The other guys in the background aren't members of the group. Those were guys from the neighborhood that Black C thought, you know, he should have more people on the covers because the name's called RBL Posse, and just having him and Mr. C, it would just look more legit if it was more people on the cover and not just him and Mr. C. But one of the greatest debut albums to come out of the West Coast hip hop and the Bay Area hip hop scene. This album was produced entirely by member Black C, except for one song called G's by the 1-2-3s, featuring Totally Insane, another legendary Bay Area hip hop group. That was produced by TC. So this record to me is like a time capsule, because this is that early West Coast hip hop sound. This is before Dr. Dre dropped the Chronic and pretty much changed everything and everybody started doing G-Funk. No, this is that early sound where it was very funky, but it was mainly based around samples. So this record is heavily sampled. It's got a lot of samples. Black C, when he met TC and saw like the setup he had at his studio with the Emacs and all the sample time he had, he just went home and started digging through his mom's record collection, and they just sampled a whole lot of that good 70s and early 80s funk music. So it really gives this record a bit of an old school kind of 70s vibe too. So in my opinion, this is one of those albums that grown folks like your parents or your grandparents at this time, your grandparents at this point, they would enjoy it. I mean, they might be put off by the language and some of the topics, but when they hear those samples like Sugar Hill Gang, Prince, The Time, Shaka Khan, Patrice Rushen, Ohio Players, when they hear some of them samples, man, it'll probably like make them, hey, I know who that is. That's Ohio Players. That's Prince. It might kind of be a little bit nostalgic for them. But I really like the production on here because it's so kind of rough and underground, very underground, and it really adds to the raw talent that Mr. C and Black C present here. Speaking of Black C and Mr. C, I mean, you can tell that there's a little bit of inexperience, with this record, but that just adds to the overall appeal of it, man, because like I said, this is raw talent, because RBL hadn't even been together that long when they dropped this record. I think they had only been together maybe a year, maybe not even that long. But Black C and Mr. C, they got two different styles. Black C, he's the more like laid back, straightforward one when it comes to the lyrics. Mr. C, he's the more kind of hype one, more energy. He's a bit more wittier, has the wordplay because he was influenced heavily by the East Coast. And even though their styles are different, their dynamic really works together. If I could compare it, I would compare it to like Q-Tip and Phife Dawg from A Tribe Called Quest. Because, Q-Tip was always like the more smooth, laid back one when he rapped. But then Phife Dawg was the one that always came with the energy. He was always more hype on the mic. So it's very entertaining, man. And, the way that they do the samples on here, and, going back to that, like you have a song like I Ain't No Joke that has like, the main sample is Prince, Soft and Wet, but then there's all kinds of other samples that are sprinkled throughout it that make it more interesting. Or you have a song like More Like an Orgy that's mainly based around a P-Funk sample, but then I think there's a part after each verse where it breaks into like Teddy's Jam 2 by Guy. And then, there's Digital Underground samples sprinkled throughout. Let's see, like Remind Me. That the main sample used is Remind Me by Patrice Rushen. But then when Black Sea comes on his part, the whole song switches and goes to Sweet Thing by Shaka Khan, and he just kills the beat when he's rhyming, man. It's just a really amazing album, man. You know, Bees on the Ding Dong is another funky track, sort of like a Psycho, a part of Survival. All of these songs they just really hit, man. And this album is actually best known for the single Don't Give Me No Bammer Weed, which was a huge hit for RBL. It's their biggest hit to date. That's the song that they're best known for. It's a timeless classic. It's become a stoner anthem for all you smokers out there. And man, they just took off when this album hit the streets. It was really like overnight success for them. But I really enjoy this record. You know, in the past I wasn't so crazy about it because I actually didn't start with this record. I started with the second album. But as I've gotten older, I really appreciate it a lot more because I recognize that this album, it's a time capsule. It's a time capsule of the early West Coast hip hop sound before the Chronic. So anybody and I really like that early West Coast hip hop sound before the Chronic, man. To me, it was like the East Coast. It was like the mirror image of what the East Coast were doing. Because, you know, the East Coast were heavily into sampling. But at the time before the Chronic, the West Coast was really on that too. It's just that their styles were more funky because they were more influenced by Ohio players and Zapp and Roger and Prince and, you know, Patrice Rushen and so many things, man. Their style was just more funkier. But it's a time capsule. So if you want a piece of West Coast hip hop history, you want to hear what the West Coast sounded like before Dre's The Chronic, this is one of the best albums to check out for that. This is a really great album. It's the group's best-selling album. I think it's their most successful record too. I think it like debuted at like number 60 on the Billboard, and it was an independent release. It came out through In a Minute Records. So that's an amazing feat for well, I guess you could say like an underground hip hop group that was more regional for their album to debut like that on the Billboard. So that was a huge accomplishment for them. But definitely an album worth checking out. Just for the pure like raw talent and the really raw and underground production feel of it. Alright, so moving on, we're going to talk about the second RBL album, Ruthless by Law, released in 1994. I don't know what happened to the original case that I had, but I think it got damaged and I had to replace it with one of these little slim cases. But I got the insert. This is the insert. This is the back of the insert. Fun fact about this picture right here. This picture was supposed to have been the original album cover, and the album had a different title too. I can't quite remember what the original title was, but this was the original album cover that they were gonna go with. And let's see. There's the CD. There's the CD. I'm not sure what pressing this is because I know In a Minute Records put out like a reissue, I think like in the early 2000s or somewhere around that time. But like I said in the intro of this video, this was the first RBL album that I heard. This was the one that made me a fan of RBL. So for me personally, this is my favorite RBL. And you know, I'm 36 years old, and I noticed that most RBL fans around my age, this seems to be the album that they gravitate to the most. Mostly the older people, like in maybe their late 40s and early 50s, they tend to really enjoy the first album the most. But people in my age group tend to go for Ruthless by Law. But you know, I don't want to repeat myself, but like I said, a buddy of mine at the time, he was working at a record store and he ordered this for me. And I had heard the 30-second snippets off of CD Universe, and I was blown away by Bounce to This. I was like, whoa, I ain't never heard nothing like this. This is amazing music. But what I like so much about Ruthless by Law is that you can hear the growth in RBL. Let's start with the production. So the production on here is way different than was on the first album. You know, the first album, like I said, was mainly based around a lot of sampling. But that kind of came back to bite RBL because they had to clear those samples and it ended up eating up their budget. So for this album, Black Sea, he was like, you know what, I'm just going to go all original production. And if we do sample, we're just going to play over the samples. And he actually was doing original production before the first album, but when he saw TC's setup, he just went sample crazy. But this record is where Black Sea's particular sound really came into play as a producer. If you know anything about RBL Posse had their own sound. I mean, it was Bay Area mob music. It was that Frisco sound. But you know, everybody, if you listen to that music enough, you will understand that a lot of those artists, even though they came from the same city, they were also from different sections and different neighborhoods, and each section and neighborhood had their own sound. So these guys coming from Hunters Point, Harbor Road, Black C, he developed his own sound. What he did was he took like that G-Funk and he just meshed it with that Bay Area mob, and that's how he created that RBL sound. And he described it as gangsta party music, because it was definitely street, it was definitely for the block, but you could also dance to it. You know, you could ride in your car and you could just be bobbing your head or doing your little two-step to it. That's the way the music was. Also, Selsky, another Frisco rap legend, he contributed like 3-4 songs on here. Bounce to This being one of them, which was a single and had the video. And him and Black C had similar production styles, and they were really feeding off each other. And I believe also the Enhancer also contributed a little bit to the record as well, but majority of it was Black C. But yeah, this is where Black C really, in my opinion, came into his own as a producer, because this is where he developed his style. So another great thing about Ruthless by Law, and just to keep in mind, I guess I'll go ahead and say this: Ruthless by Law is also what RBL stands for. Just in case anybody was wondering what RBL stands for, it stands for Ruthless by Law. But to continue, the growth between Black C and Mr. C as performers on here, it also really showed. So on that first album, you know, Black C, he was more straightforward lyrically, but one thing I noticed about Ruthless by Law is that Black C, man, he started to really switch up his flow a little bit more, and he also sounded a lot more confident on this album that he did on the first one, because he started switching up his flow. He started using like a little bit of wordplay and metaphors, so you could tell that Mr. C was really rubbing off on him, because he was just really starting to switch it up a lot more on here, and he really sounded more comfortable on this album than he did on the first one. Mr. C, you know, I will say that I think Mr. C, even though you could tell that there were some spots on the first album where, you know, you could tell that it was his first time really in a professional studio, I would say that he really sounded more comfortable on the beats on this record, because there were some songs on the first album where you could tell he was kind of struggling just a little bit to stay on the beat, but he's not doing that on this album. He's right in the pocket on the beats on every song on this record. Also, he really stepped up with the wordplay and the metaphors. I mean, dang near every verse he spits, he's coming with some type of witty punchline or some type of witty metaphor. My favorite punchline on this album that he did was on the song I Got My 9, where he actually said, "I'm not a Reebok employee, but boy, I got many pumps," in reference to, like, you know, a shotgun or whatever. But that was my favorite line on here, man. And he just really came hard with the metaphors. And I will also say that I think Black C was also rubbing off on him as an artist, because he was coming a lot harder on here too. Like, he was getting real gangster with the lyrics and stuff on here too as well, like Black C was on the first album. So I think they was really influencing each other, because you can watch interviews about where Black C talks about Mr. C. He was from the hood, but he wasn't somebody that was like out there like in the streets doing things. He was like a really good dude that he just wanted to rap. But on this album, you can really tell that some of that influences was rubbing off on him as far as him being an artist. Like, he was coming really hard on a lot of songs on this record, man. But I just really enjoyed this record so much. Another thing that I can't forget about this album is that this was the introduction of Hitman. Now, I know Black C has said that Hitman really wasn't the third member of RBL, but, you know, honestly, I think the fans made Hitman the third member. But he made his first appearance on this record. He appeared on 3 songs, Listen to My Creep, Mortuary Number, and Pass the Zigzags. And he killed every performance. Like, he was one of the many highlights of this record. He only had 3 appearances, but those 3 appearances were enough to make people really pay attention to him, because he was a young guy. I think he might have been like 15 years old when he recorded on this record, maybe 14, 15. He was young, but if you listen to the way he spit, he sounded way advanced beyond his age. That's crazy. Like him and San Quinn, them dudes were really killing. They were like the youngest dudes out of the Bay, but they spit like grown men, like they had been rapping for 30 years at that point, but very advanced. Also, man, there's a lot of good, like there's a couple of good like smoking songs on here. You know, I don't partake in that stuff, but like Smoke a Blunt and Pass the Zigzags. I know I see a lot of people on Instagram when 420 pops up. A lot of people be having they blunts rolled and stuff like that, and then they had this album like sitting on their table and stuff like that. But I can understand, because it has that vibe. I mean, you listen to the mobbing beats and everything like that, it'll definitely put you in that zone for that. But this was a really great record. I don't think it got as high on the Billboard as A Lesson to Be Learned, because I mean the first album had Bammer Weed, which took off. I mean, but they had some big songs on here. Bounce to This was a big one, and then the second song on the album, Bluebird, was another hit. Now that song was really big down in LA, because if you listen to I think people down in LA thought that RBL was on like some gang banging type of tip, but you know, they from Frisco, they from the Bay. The Bay don't get down like that. But that song took off. And they were supposed to shoot a video with it, but they ended up having a falling out with their label, In a Minute Records, over some money issues. So this would be their last album on In a Minute Records, and sadly it would also be the last album with Mr. C. But I won't get into that right now. I'll get into that a little bit later in the video. But this is a great record. I just really like Black C's production on here. I like how both him and Mr. C had really grown as artists, as lyricists. I mean, this record is a smash. I remember riding around bumping this record and people asking me, yo, what is this, man? This is tight. Because nobody from around here my way were really familiar with that West Coast music. You know, people around here where I'm from, they mainly stuck like with the South stuff, which is cool. But you know, I was always like listening to the West Coast stuff. But anyway, man, this is a great record. You know, their last with In a Minute Records. Unfortunately, their final one with Mr. C. But the introduction to Hitman and the start of Black C being one of the pioneers of that Frisco sound and one of the pioneers of that Bay Area mob sound as well. But this is a really great record, man. Check it out. Like I said, this is the album that made me a fan. This is my favorite. In a lot of ways, I consider it to be RBL's best album. I know Black C, if he ever come across this video, he wouldn't agree, because he really considers the first album to be their best. But you know, personally for me, I just really like Ruthless by Law. This was the one that really like did it for me and made me want to just go in and just really get into this group. So check it out. It is on Spotify, and I think Black C, he still has copies of this that you can buy off his website on RBL Posse Big Cartel. So if you want a copy of this, you want a hard copy, definitely hit up his website and check it out. Alright, so this next album that I'm going to talk about, this actually isn't a RBL Posse album, but it is related to RBL Posse. It's a part of the family tree. It's a spin-off album. So we're going to talk about Hitman, Solo Creep. This is Hitman's debut studio album. Released in 1995, produced entirely by Black C or RBL Posse. That's him on the cover. I think. Wait, this is Hitman. Excuse me. Yeah, this is Hitman right here, and I think that's Black C right there. Man, I feel so fortunate to have a hard copy of this album in my CD collection. I bought this off of Amazon 15 years ago. And it was expensive back then. I think back then it was going for like anywhere from like $50 to $60. Nowadays, man, it don't go no lower than the hundreds. The highest I've seen this album selling for on CD was $466 and some change on Amazon. When I saw that price, man, I felt so blessed. Like, I mean, I'm so glad I got this album when I did. This is probably next to Ruthless by Law. Man, this is my favorite album to come out of the RBL Posse camp. this is my favorite album to come out of. One of my favorite albums, next to the Ruthless by Law. But man, some days I like this one more than Ruthless by Law. I gotta be honest with you, man. This record was so mobbing. To me, this record represents the epitome of Black C as a producer. And you know, like Ruthless by Law, that you got the appetizer. You got like an appetizer, a teaser of Hitman. He did like 3 songs, but this album, you get the full course meal of Hitman. He really gets a chance to demonstrate just how talented of an MC he was on this record. He was still a teenager. I think he might have been like 16 or 17 when this record dropped. But you would not know it from how lyrically advanced he was. But man, let me talk about Black C's production on here. I think this album has some of Black C's best production, if not his best production. I mean, the beats on here was just so mobbing. Like Black C was really, he was really in the pocket when he produced this record. I'm not sure what was really motivating him or what was inspiring him at this time, but man, he gave Hitman a lot of heat. He gave Hitman a lot of heat on this record. I would be surprised if Mr. C wasn't kind of like mad and like, dang, you give him Hitman all the hot stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because it's some fire records on this record. My favorite song on this album, still to this day, is I Bet You Buy the Chip, track number 3. That was the song that I heard that made me go, yo, I got to find this album on CD. You know what I'm saying? And even back then, 2010, I mean, yeah, I think it was like 50 some bucks I paid for. It was a little expensive, but considering what it goes for now, that was very reasonable. And I'm glad that I got it when I did. But this is such a great record. This is underrated too. I don't hear enough people talk about Solo Creep. Cause it's a fantastic record. One of the greatest Bay Area Frisco rap albums ever. I mean, the beats on here is just crazy. And it's a super rare album. Because I don't even think you can get it out there in the Bay. That's how rare it is. But so many great joints on this record, man. Like the first track, Macaho, Mr. Player Hater featuring NOH Mafia, which we gonna speak on in a little bit. I think this might have been the first appearance of NOH Mafia, if I'm not mistaken. I already talked about Bet You Buy the Chip, man. That beat, that bass line and that clap. Excuse me, man, that song, if you got a nice system in your car, I Bet You Buy the Chip is going to make your trunk rattle. And it's going to turn heads if you roll around in a parking lot. People are going to stop and they going to look. And they probably going to ask you what you bumping. Because that's how good that song is. All the Ends, Reaper, Deeper and Deeper, G's and Jiggies, which I think was like the song kind of for the ladies. I never was all that crazy about that song in the past, but it's actually grown on me more as an adult, because listening to the lyrics, man, Hitman, he was really killing it lyrically on that track. Solo Creep, the title track, The Funk, Would You Know featuring Mr. C, You Better Come Strapped featuring Black C, Cut 'Em by the Pound featuring Mo the Hustler from NOH, A Glock Here, A Glock There, Mr. Sandman. Like, this whole entire album is a standout for me. This whole entire album. And Black C, he's kind of all over the record. He's like doing like little hooks and little ad-libs and stuff like that throughout the record, man. But man, he did such a great job. Both of them did such a great job on this record. And this was a strictly independent release. This did not come out on In a Minute Records. This came out through Black C's label, The Right Way Productions, which he formed not long after Ruthless by Law, because of all the issues they were having with In a Minute Records. So he put this out himself through his own label. He pressed up the CDs and they sold it out the trunk. And they made a lot of money off of this record. I forget how many copies Black C said that they sold of this record, but they sold a lot because Hitman was real popular. I mean, just off of those 3 appearances from Ruthless by Law, he was already becoming like a star in the Bay. And he sold a lot of copies of this record. He sold so many copies of this album that it actually paid for his house that he lives in. That's how much money him and Hitman made off this record. But it's a really great record. And you know something, now that I think about it, I think another thing that's somewhat special about this record, it's kind of like it's almost like the end of an era for RBL, which I'll get into in a minute. It's kind of like the end of a particular era of RBL, man. So but it's a really great record. Really great record. If you can find a physical copy for a reasonable price, go for it. But if you can't, it is on Spotify, and I think they put out a vinyl. I think they put out vinyls of it not too long ago. I seen it on Amazon, so you might want to cop one of those vinyl records if you want to. But amazing record, definitely get this one. Definitely check it out if you've never heard it. But I feel so fortunate that I had this in my collection. I could talk about this album all day, but I'm gonna move on. But just know that this is a very good album. One of the best Bay Area hip hop albums of all time. Okay, so next album we're gonna talk about. This isn't an RBL album either, but it is a part of the RBL family. It's more of a spin-off album, and I thought it was really important. Well, I thought I should just put it in this video because this is the only album that this group really put out. But it holds a very important place in RBL's history though. But that's NOH Mafia's Ends on High, released in 1996. As you can see, it says RBL Posse presents NOH Mafia. Down at the bottom, you might not can read that, but it says produced by Black C and Mr. C. And I think this version that I have, this is the 2000 reissue, because I believe the original version on the CD cover, I think the NOH letters were blue, but the 2000 one, they're silver one. But in any case, man, this is another rare album. This was the sole album that NOH Mafia put out. NOH Mafia actually consisted of two rappers, Mo the Hustler, who I think at the time was going by Hustler Mo, and Mally Mal. And I believe they made their first appearance on Hitman's Solo Creep. So in some ways, that Solo Creep was sort of kind of like a rollout for them to be up next, kind of like how Ruthless by Law was a rollout for Hitman. Like Black C was really setting up the stage for his that RBL family tree. But like I said in the Hitman video, I said that album was like the end of an era, right? So this is what happened on New Year's Day of 1996, January 1st, 1996. Mr. C of RBL, he was murdered. He was fatally shot 9 times, and he was killed, man. And that whole tragedy right there, man, that shook up the Bay, that shook up Frisco. And of course it shook up Black C and the rest of the RBL Right Way family, man. Because I won't go into details behind it, because Black C has done interviews where he talks about it. He also talks about it in his book, which I meant to bring that book out. I'll do it in a little bit. But yeah, Mr. C was murdered on January the 1st of 1996, man, which really pretty much changed the whole direction of RBL. Because when RBL, after that second album, because I think they sold like 500,000 copies of Ruthless by Law independently, and they had a major deal on the table from like Relativity. I think Def Jam was talking to them, but they ultimately went with Big Beat Atlantic, because I think, what's his name, Craig Callaman, actually flew out to Frisco and had lunch with Mr. C and Black C and really told them how much of a fan he was of them. And he really showed a lot of interest. He made a connection with them, and they liked, and they were going to sign with them. But before they could even sign with them, Mr. C ended up being killed, and it just changed everything. I mean, RBL still did the deal, but of course things had to change because they had lost one of the members and so forth. But that whole thing just changed everything for Black C and RBL. But this album in particular, came out it came out during that dark period. This record came out during that dark period, and I didn't know that until recently. I never knew that till recently, cause in the past I thought, I didn't know that Mr. C like passed on New Year's Day of 1996. I thought it might have happened like sometime later in that year, but no, this record came out and was created during that whole dark period, man. Black Sea was in a depression. Of course, man, he had just lost a best friend and a his rhyme partner, you know what I'm saying? And Mr. C hadn't even been around that long. Cause he wasn't from the neighborhood. Like Black C and Mr. C didn't grow up together. He was brought to the neighborhood by another childhood friend of Black C. He was brought to that neighborhood, and him and Black C just, they hit it off. They connected. They started the RBL, and of course, they became friends. They became family. They spending time together. You know what I'm saying? They hanging out and everything. And then this happens, and Black C felt guilty. But this album came out in the midst of that dark period, and I gotta commend NOH Mafia. I gotta commend Black C and everybody that was involved, because they put out another classic. This is another classic album from the RBL camp. Because this record is really good, really good. I mean, it's really the last album where you really get to hear Black C's like classic sound, because after this record he stepped back from producing a lot. So this was really like the last album that he really kind of presented that style that he had created with Ruthless by Law and everything like that. But man, Mally Mal and Mo the Hustler, man, those dudes really be spitting on this record. They really be spitting. They be really coming with some dope lyrics on here. I really like both of their styles, because there's moments where they kind of be rapping a little bit fast, and they kind of bring it back and slow it down and stuff like that. It's really cool what they did, man. It's a lot of bangers on here, a lot of mobbing beats on here. I think the song that really got me into this album when I first heard it years ago was the track called Get Up On It, because it had that signature RBL sound, like that heavy bass line and the clap and everything. That, like, it's just one of them beats, kind of like Bet You Buy the Chip, where if you got a nice system in your car, it's gonna knock. What was another song here? Oh, Now They Want to Jock. That was another one that really sold me on this album. Live for the Funk is another great one. That song actually has them, I think that's like a subliminal song where they're taking shots at the people that were involved with what happened to Mr. C. But this whole entire album was dedicated to Mr. C's memory. They even got a song paying tribute to him called Nothing But Love for Mr. C on here, which features other members of the whole like Right Wave family and so forth. But a really great record. Very rare, just like Hitman Solo Creep. But you can still find CD copies of Hitman's album, but it's just really expensive. But you cannot even find a CD copy of NOH Mafia. I think I paid like $100 for this copy. It was on Discogs, and it came from France, so I had to wait like a little bit for it to come, from overseas and everything like that. But really fantastic album. Like I said, one of the last albums that really had that classic RBL Black Sea sound that he had created, starting with Ruthless by Law and Solo Creep and so forth. After this, he would kind of step back from it and start working with other producers and so forth. But it's a really good record. It is on Spotify if you want to check it out, because for this album, that's probably the only way that you could really hear the record now. But just a fantastic record, man. So yeah, NOH Mafia ends on high. Great record. One of the dopest albums to come from Right Way Productions and the RBL Posse camp, man. Check that joint out, man. Real good one. Alright, so the next album we got on here, we going back to the RBL albums. So after the loss of Mr. C, man, Black C, he did want to give up, but I think it was Craig Callaman. He like him and Craig Callaman and Black C's family, they all convinced him just to keep going, not to stop. You know what I'm saying? Because the people that did that to Mr. C, that was their whole. That's what they were trying to do. They were really, it was all out of jealousy, and they were trying to really just kind of put a stop to the success that Black C was having with RBL and everything like that. So RBL did do another album, and it's their only major label album. That's An Eye for an Eye, released in 1997. I actually got 2 copies of this album. This is a real copy. This is the actual real copy. I found this at Manifest when they were still open. It was in the used section, and the copy that I bought from Amazon ended up being a fake copy, one of those cheap like CDR reissues that a lot of labels are doing now. But that's why I went ahead and got this real one, because I wanted the real one. I didn't want the fake one. But yeah, this is the first album without Mr. C, and their first and only album on Big Beat Atlantic. This record, so to tell you the truth, man, even though this was the first album without Mr. C, man, I've heard a lot of people call this their favorite RBL album. I really have heard that. There's a lot of people out here that call this their favorite RBL album. This record has really grown on me in the years. You know, for a long time, you know, I kind of was a little indifferent because you know, Mr. C wasn't there. But I finally saw the video for How We Comin', which featured Mystical and Big Lurch, and I was like, oh, this is really dope. And then I ended up hearing the whole entire album. I was like, you know what? A lot of the production on here is really good, and I think Mr. C, not Mr. C, Black C was really, I think he took all that he was dealing with at the time, and he really put it into this record, and it really shows in his performance. Hitman also is brought in more on this record. So Hitman, he makes a lot of appearances on this, but Black C has said that if Mr. C had still been alive, Hitman would have still been all over the album. And he's also stated that if Mr. C had been alive, then we wouldn't have got this album. We would have got a totally different album. Like, a lot of this record was Black C really just, he just really just being, you know, like he said it himself, like he was really in his feelings, rightfully so, because some haters had just taken out his rhyme partner. He had just taken out a close friend, a family member, you know, somebody he looked at his family and stuff like that. They had just taken this guy out and tried to like sabotage RBL's career and everything like that. So there's a whole theme around this album of revenge and so forth. And there's a few songs on here where they're taking like shots at the people that were involved and stuff of that nature, man. It's a hard record, man. You know, Black C has said that when they dropped this album, they lost the female fan base, because, you know, those other records, they had that female fan base because Mr. C really helped bring that aspect to their sound. But once he wasn't there no more, it just went straight gangster, you know. But it's a lot of great songs on this record. Of course, this was the first album where Black started to work with outside producers. I think Rick Rock did a lot of the production on here, but I believe like G-Man Stan did some joints on here. Black C, I think he only did like 2 songs. He only produced 2 songs. One of the songs being my favorite, which is Straight Lacin'. That's one of my favorite songs on here. And my second favorite would be You Can't Hang. Those are my 2 favorite joints on here. But there's a lot of good music on here. He also started working with artists outside of the Bay. Let's see here, Mystical from New Orleans is on here on the How We Comin' track, and Big Lurch, who, even though he was based in the Bay Area, he was actually from, I think, Texas. I think he was from Fort Worth, Texas originally. And MC8 is on here from Compton. Then you got Tila from Suave House and Rap A Lot fame, Memphis, Tennessee. You know, they appear on the song Gotta Get Mine. But it's a lot of really good songs on here, man. Then you got the track called Till the End, featuring the Posse, which is pretty much the Right Way Productions family, you know, everybody like NOH Mafia and some other artists. That's probably my third favorite track on here. That was a real dope way to end the album. Concrete Jungle is another banger. An Eye for an Eye. Gone Away is a good one, even though it's really sad, but it's still a great track. The Individual, More Game featuring Richie Rich. But yeah, this whole entire album is really good. It's a really good record. It's unfortunate that it was created out of a tragedy, though, you know, with losing Mr. C, man. But they really put out another classic record. I've heard a lot of people say that this is their favorite RBL album. It's, for me, it's getting up there. I think I probably would put it as like maybe my third favorite RBL album. Ruthless by Law would be my favorite, then A Lesson to Be Learned, and probably this one. But it's a real good record. Real good record. I've been listening to it a lot more lately, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'll also say this, man. If you get Black C's book and you read his book and listen to this album, a lot of the lyrics on here will make a lot more sense. You will understand exactly what he's talking about and possibly who he's talking about. But yeah, this is a real classic record. I always liked the album cover too. I think Victor Hall did the album cover. He did a lot of covers for people in the Bay Area, but classic album cover. To me, it kind of looks like something that you will see on No Limit a little bit. I mean, not like the shiny pen and pixel covers, but not everybody on No Limit did those covers. But like if RBL Posse was on No Limit, this would have been like the kind of cover they would have had. I think it would have fit kind of perfect. I think it would have fit a little bit in that lane in some ways, man. But it's a real cool cover, real cool album, real good album. I really like this album a lot nowadays because I understand it a lot more after reading Black C's book. But yeah, definitely check this one out too. This is another classic RBL. It's a different sound, but a lot of good songs on here. So definitely check this one out as well. Alright, so next album. So this isn't an RBL album, but it is another RBL related record. This is Hitman's second and final album, H2O, released in 1999 and produced by Black C. So I'm thinking maybe this might have been the last album that Black C really produced. I know he said that it was after Mr. C's death that he kind of stepped back, but I couldn't see any other production credits on this record, and it says down at the bottom, produced by Black C. So I'm thinking maybe he made an exception with this album because it was Hitman and so forth. But yeah, this is Hitman's second studio album, and this is his final album, which I'll explain why that happened later. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't always liked H2O as much as Solo Creep. When it comes to Hitman's records, I mean, he only put out 2 of them, unfortunately. But when it comes to those albums, Solo Creep is gonna be my favorite. That record is just a whole different animal, man. But H2O, Volume 1, I'm learning to appreciate this album so much more nowadays because I recognize that it's different. It's a different era. Black C, he's grown as a producer. He's got a different style now. At this time the West Coast hip hop sound was kind of changing. I think even the mob sound was changing a little bit. So you gotta stay up to date with the times. You don't want to be dated. But I also recognize that Hitman had grown as a artist as well. So the first album, Solo Creep, that he did, at that time, RBL, they were still out there on Harbor Road. They were still on the block and everything like that. Not like they was like participating in street activity, but they were still like hanging in the projects and stuff. They were still in that environment. So Solo Creep really reflected that. If you listen to the lyrics, everything that Hitman was spitting, man, they were still in that environment. It was a reflection of everything that was around at the time. But they wasn't on the block at this point. They had got out of there after what happened to Mr. C. So this record, we'll talk about Hitman. We'll talk about Hitman first. Hitman, lyrically, he matured because I think he was like 20 or 21 by this time. So he wasn't talking about being on the block and stuff like that. He was actually being more introspective on a lot of songs on this record. He was being a lot more deep and stuff. You listen to songs like Psychology and A Perfect World, Rare Specimen, Are You Ready for Me? Let's see what else is on. Time Has Come and stuff like that. He was just on another level at this point, man. He was just talking about other things. I guess it was almost like he was recognizing that the world was more than just the block. It was more than just Frisco, Hunters Point, and so forth, man. He really just became deep with a lot of the subject matter. Also, Black C's production on here, it's not as mobbing as the prior Hitman album or the prior albums that came before this one, but I like it because it still has some. It's still funky. It still got some funkiness to it. Like the song called like "What's Your Hustle." Like Dog Catcher is probably the most mobbingest track on here. Straight Lacing Part 2. Oh yeah, I forgot about Claustrophobia. Claustrophobia is another dope track too, where Hitman really kind of expands his like subject matter and his lyricism, man. Sizzling Hot, MOB. Like these tracks still got some funkiness to them, man. But what I noticed is that production wise, it's a little bit more experimental. Like the way that Black Sea utilizes like the keys and stuff and the certain rhythms, it's a little bit more experimental. Not experimental to the point where you're not understanding what's going on. You know what I mean? It's not like he on some Deltron 3030 type of thing, but it's just different. It's just something that's different. It's more unique. You know what I'm saying? That's what I noticed. But yeah, the more I've been listening to this album as an adult, the more I'm starting to appreciate it more, and I can recognize the growth in Hitman as an artist and in the production style of Black Sea. So this, like I said, I haven't always liked this album that much in the past, but these days it's really starting to grow on me, and I respect it for the growth and that I'm hearing on this record, man. So yeah, Hitman H2O, I consider it a really dope record. It was Hitman's final album, and I think he really showed everybody that he was really an artist and that he could rap about anything on this record. That's what I really respect about this album. And I also like the cover art. I thought it was a real dope cover art too. But this album is a lot easier to find than Solo Creep. This one is a bit more accessible, and it's a little bit cheaper than Solo Creep as well. But really great record. Really good follow up to it's a dope record. It's growing on me. It's growing on me as I listen to it more. I'm starting to recognize just how genius everything is on this record. But definitely check this one out. I recommend starting with Solo Creep first though, and then working your way up to this one. Alright, so this next album, we done got down to the last two. So this is a RBL Posse album, but it's not a studio album. But I thought this one was pretty important to mention in this video. This is Bootlegs and Bay-ish, released in 2000. Bootlegs and Bay-ish, the resume. So this is a compilation album, 2-disc, and it includes a bunch of like miscellaneous songs, like various songs that RBL did for compilation albums, as well as songs where they were featured on other artists' albums and so forth. And it's got a few tracks. It's got a couple of songs that are well known from the band's albums. Like I Got My Nine is on here. I think More Game. So not like it's not really a greatest hits album, but it's got a lot of like various songs that RBL had done at that point, and it's got like 2 unreleased tracks, Ruthless by Law and As We Blaze, because RBL didn't really have a lot of like tracks that they kind of like had in a vault or anything like that. They pretty much put out almost everything that they did, and it's got some remixes too on here. But I thought it was pretty important to have this in my collection because it's got some rare songs on here, like Dollar Out of 15 Cents with Master P. That's the song that was the song that they did with Master P on the first West Coast Bad Boys album, Another Level of the Game. That album's pretty hard to come by, especially the original one. The original was really expensive. Then there's other songs that they did, like Reality Check, which was on Big Mac's album A Better Way. Let's see what else is on here, and of course those two previously unreleased songs and the remixes, man. But I don't know if you already have most of these albums and compilation albums, I don't know. You may want to skip this one. It may be skippable for you, but everybody doesn't have those compilation albums. But I thought it was a real good record, a real good album to kind of have all those different like miscellaneous songs all in one place for people that are fans of RBL. But it's a real dope album. Black Sea has actually said that this is one of RBL's most popular albums. This was strictly independent. He put this out himself, and I think he still gets offers from what's that label, City Hall Records, the owner of City Hall Records that did a lot of the distribution and stuff for the Bay Area artists. I think he said he still gets offers for him to press this album back up and put it back out because it sold a lot of copies when it was released. But yeah, it's a real dope compilation, man. Yeah, I don't know I don't know if I would recommend this to newcomers. I think that this is more, I don't know, I think this is more for people that might be a little bit more familiar with their music already, but they kind of want these extra tracks that weren't on albums per se. So I don't know, but it's a real dope compilation album to have, just to get these other extra songs that weren't on the other albums. But it's pretty dope, man. It's one of RBL's most popular releases actually. But it's a real dope compilation. All right, so now we down to the final album that I'm gonna talk about today. Kind of glad too, because I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit. But Hostile Takeover, released in 2001. This is the final RBL Posse album, and so let me say this. This is another album that kind of had to grow on me a little bit because once again, at this point, Black Seed wasn't really doing a lot of production. He had kind of stepped back and was letting other producers, he was working with other producers. I think at this point, he had already kind of had his own team of in-house producers, or for his label, Right Way Productions. One of them being his cousin Herminator from Sacramento. This record, it's got a different sound. I don't know if y'all remember, but around the late 90s and early 2000s, there was this particular style of gangster rap called thug rap that was briefly popular. It was like a more energetic type of gangster rap. To me, I kind of call it like the precursor to crunk, Atlanta crunk, because a lot of southern artists were doing it at this time. I think it might have originated down here in the South, but I noticed a lot of Bay Area artists were kind of tapping into that sound as well around the late 90s and early 2000s. And it was really just a more energetic kind of style of gangster rap where, there were choruses that were kind of chanted a little bit. There's a little bit of that kind of on this record. There's a little bit of it, but they definitely keep it mob for most of this record. They definitely keep it mob. I think G-Man Stan produced a majority of this album. At least that's what it says on Wikipedia. Now I don't know if that's actually correct, but when this album came out, there was a lot of stuff going on in San Francisco. There was a lot of street violence going on, especially within Hunters Point. It was an internal thing going on in Hunters Point. Different neighborhoods were beefing with each other, and there was also rumors going around, false rumors saying that RBL Posse was done, that they were over with, or whatever. And Black C, he did this album. He wanted to do this album to make a statement, to show people that RBL hadn't gone anywhere and that they were still a major factor in the Bay Area. And they were moving around pretty mean at this time. Now, when I say moving mean, I don't mean they was going around tearing stuff up and causing mayhem. No, they were just moving around real deep. Walking around wearing their RBL jackets, RBL patches, and they were just letting it known throughout the streets of the Bay that RBL was still here. And ain't nobody ran nobody away from nothing. RBL ain't through, it's still going strong. But that's really what this album was. He wanted to make a statement with this record. And then another thing I noticed about this album is that a lot more of the Right Way Militia, they contributed a lot to this record too, as far as features and so forth. So as to not make it a total Black Sea solo record. But this album was really the beginning of Black Sea becoming a solo artist. This was really the beginnings of that. Well, you could say it started with the Eye for an Eye album, but Hitman was really prominent on that record. He was really prominent on that record. But this record was kind of the beginning, and that's why Black Sea decided to kind of stop putting out albums under the RBL name, because this record was really successful when it dropped. It sold a lot of copies independently. It was a success independently, and he wanted to like end it on a high note. He didn't want to keep putting out RBL albums under the RBL name and they not really live up to the standards that he had for RBL and so forth. And but it's a real good record. Again, you know, I haven't had this album that long. I think I got this like last year, because this record was a little bit hard to find in the past. But you know, it's a really dope record. It's growing on me. The more I listen to it, the more I'm starting to find things that I like about it and I enjoy about it. And especially after reading Black C's book, I really understand it a lot more now. But yeah, it's a real dope album. Sadly though, this would be the final album with Hitman. I mean, and Hitman's really not on this album a whole lot, because at the time I think him and Black C were kind of going in different directions. Hitman was like kind of going back to the projects and stuff, and Black C, he pretty much had separated himself from that world. But this would be Hitman's final appearance on the RBL album. He would end up losing his life to gun violence 2 years later in 2003. He would end up being killed in Hunters Point while stopped at a stoplight at an intersection in that neighborhood. Somebody just pulled up on him and took him out, man. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's not the reason why RBL stopped, actually. Black C actually went into this album, as he explained in his book. He went into this album with the intention of it being the final RBL album. So Hitman's death is not the reason why RBL Posse ended. That didn't happen until a couple of years later. Black C had already decided to put a stop to RBL, and this was going to be the final album. So just wanted to say that, because I know in Wikipedia it says that it was the final RBL album because of Hitman's death in 2003, but no, Black C was ready to start focusing on being a solo artist, and that's why he went ahead and just decided to end it with this record. And it was a success. He ended it on a high note, because this album was a success and it's a classic. You know, even though it's still more of a grower for me, because I've only recently been getting around to listening to this one. It's a classic. It's considered a Bay Area classic and a classic in their catalog as well. But it's a really dope record. So yeah, definitely check this one out too. You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, I gotta be honest with you, I do miss the RBL sound of the first two records and the Hitman and NOH and Mafia albums, but they did continue to put out some really good projects. You can't say that RBL had some bad albums. So it was real good that they made a statement with this record, and they ended it on a high note. So, you know, that's a real good thing. And you know, R.I.P. to Hitman as well. R.I.P. to Hitman. All right, so quickly before I end this video, because this video is already a little bit over an hour long, I just want to talk about. I just want to speak on this book briefly. This is Black C's memoir right here. Black C, a part of survival, from the block to the booth, the autobiography. This came out in 2022. I was a little bit late on it. I don't think I got this book to like 2023 sometime. But yeah, this is Black C's autobiography. He's telling his story. I think he did this independently as well. He did this with a writer named Charles. I want to say Jolivet. I hope I pronounced that right. But this is a really good book. You can find this on Amazon. Black C also he also sells it on his own website, RBL Posse BitCartel.com. So you can get that. You can get it on there, and probably other places where books are sold. But I really recommend. Oh, bookmark fell out. I really recommend reading this book. Even if you're somebody that's new to RBL Posse, read this book, because I'm telling you, it's a really good story, and there's a real good message behind it as well. You know what I'm saying? It's like the title says, a part of survival. It's a story of a survival of a man who grew up in a very tough environment and who beat the odds, who overcame the obstacles, and he's still a success to this day. He's still doing his thing. He's still putting out a lot of great music. I have most of Black Sea's solo stuff. I mean, I would pull it out, but like this video is already an hour long, so I won't do that. But this is a really good book, a really good story. Not only does Black Sea tell his story, but he also gives a little bit of history of San Francisco as well. Like he throws in a little bit of like his historical facts about the city and his neighborhood where he grew up, Harbor Road and Hunters Point as well, man. But I really enjoyed this book. I think when I first bought this book, I think I read it like 5 or 6 times, and I'm thinking about reading it again, to be honest with you, because it's just a really good book, man. And I think this is a really great story that anybody should read, especially people out there who may be going through a rough patch, who may be growing up in a similar way that Black Sea might have grew up. Like, this is a very inspiring story that, you know, that I think can motivate a lot of people, man, and you can learn something from. But check this book out, and honestly, reading this book, it helped me to better understand a lot of some of the lyrics and stuff that Black Sea was saying in a lot of his music post RBL and post Mr. C and Hitman. It really helped me understand where he was coming from, who he might have been talking to, or like why things were that way, or well, not why things were that way, but you know, it really just helped me kind of understand the context behind a lot of stuff that he talks about in his music, and especially his solo stuff. But really great book, highly recommend it to anybody, man. Whether you're a long time fan of RBL or you're a new fan that's just been getting into them, check this book out. And also check out Black Sea's solo material. He's still putting out a lot of good music. He putting out a lot of fire music. I got most of his solo albums except for one, that Still Ruthless album that he did in 2012. I can't get my hands on that one because that's like the rarest one in his catalog. But man, he's still putting out some great music. He just did an EP with DJ Idea called Something to Mob to, like 7 songs, all of them fire. He just put out his latest solo album, Heavy in It, last year, which honestly, man, I think that's probably his best solo album thus far. I mean, he's still putting out some music, so we'll see what the next one be like. But that's been his best one so far. Then him and Joe Fresco, another Bay Area rap artist from San Jose, they did a collaboration album called Ruthless that I did an album review on. Classic record. That's a modern West Coast classic in my opinion. But yeah, Black Sea still putting out some heat. You can check out his Instagram too, man. He still do shows. He still be doing shows. He got merch. He got a lot of merch, especially off Bammer Weed, man. Like he got a lot of like t-shirts and stuff, especially when it comes to like Bammer Weed and stuff like that, man. So check that out as well. But yeah, RBL, you know, Black Sea, he's the only surviving member of RBL, but that legacy still continues to live through him, and he's still keeping it going. So support his book, support all the music that he's putting out. Continue to support RBL Posse, man. You know, R.I.P. to Mr. C and Hitman. You know what I'm saying? You know, they're gone, but their legacy still remains through all the great music that they left behind. And Black Sea still keeping that legacy going. He's still keeping their names out there. And if this is your first time ever hearing about RBL, definitely go check them out. Cause I'm telling you, man, you in for a real good journey of some good West Coast hip hop, or just some really good hip hop in general, man. They very underrated rap group. But I'm glad to see that more and more people are starting to recognize them, especially with Black Sea out there doing more interviews and stuff like that. I'm glad to see a lot of people recognize the contribution that they made to hip hop, how they were ahead of the game, especially when it comes to like weed anthems and stuff in hip hop. Because I really think Bammer Weed might have been the first like hip hop weed anthem, because I don't think anybody was doing that before them. I mean, Cypress Hill wasn't even doing it yet at that time. They were still more on the gangster rap tip. And then, you know, Total Devastation had that song called Many Clouds of Smoke, but that came out after Bammer Weed, to my knowledge. So they were ahead of the game. They set the stage for like I Got Five On and all these other weed anthems that you hear now. They really opened the door for a lot of people. They crawl so everybody else come in and walk. You know what I'm saying? But they were still successful with it, even back in the day, man. So definitely check out and support RBL Posse, man. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, a like, hit that bell when you subscribe to the channel. And I appreciate everybody that's been supporting my channel and that's been watching the videos, that's been commenting, even watching some of my recent shorts and stuff of that nature. I really do appreciate all of that. And as always, hope everybody has a blessed day, a blessed week, and love, peace, and music. Peace out, y'all.